Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Coach's Oats. Go get your day started with a nice, good, warm, refreshing bowl of Coach's Oats. Use the code Coaches25, that is COACHS 25, to get 25% off your first order on Amazon.com/Coaches Oats. Again, that is Coaches25, COACHS 25, to get 25% off your first bag of Coach's Oats on Amazon.com/Coach's Oats. Again, I don't know what to say. It's way better. I eat it. Everybody I live with eats it. It's good stuff. Let's do it. Let's go to the pod. This is the Train Podcast by Calvin and Wade. And this is our first pod, and we're super excited about it. So if you listen to this podcast, at the end, comment below, maybe some things you liked, maybe some things you didn't like, maybe some segments we could add on, a guest we could get. Just let us know. We want to make this podcast great, and we'll appreciate any feedback because we want to make this an enjoyable experience for y'all listening. With no further ado, our first guest this week, let's see, close friend of mine, former coach of mine, helped get things started at Mission Viejo, coached at the University of Texas, went on to the USC Trojans. Now he's back at Mission. And then amongst that, he coached at 8 Olympics. The dude's got a resume. So with no further ado, Mark Schubert. Mark Schubert. How's it going? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. So, how you doing today?
Pretty good, Calvin. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we actually had a little inter-squad meet down at in Huntington Beach, down at Golden West.
Oh, so, good. How'd they do?
Yeah, they swam actually pretty well. It was fun seeing them compete after it's been, I don't know, so long since they've seen competition and seen racing. So some of them actually swam really well. A lot of them probably just because they grew up a little bit. But for the most part, it's really fun watching these guys.
That's great.
Yeah, how you been?
Most of us are excited to have a swimming meet, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you guys are just coming back from not only open water, was that nationals? What was that?
Was called the West Coast Open at Henderson, Nevada. And then last weekend we swam in Phoenix. 4 weeks ago we swam in Arizona again, in Kingman, Arizona at 3,000 feet. So we've just been going out of state to get our racing in.
Yeah. And I want to come back eventually and talk about swimming with Haley Anderson. Or I guess you're not swimming with Haley Anderson, but working with Haley Anderson, especially through this time and getting prepared for Tokyo. But before that, I kind of want to talk about COVID and how you guys have handled it, which it seems like you guys are doing an amazing job, and how you guys have prepared not only, I guess, for the situation now, but the future situation and what you guys are doing and how you've done it so well.
Well, we set up a protocol that we presented to the city of Mission Viejo, which included social distancing when you walk in and wearing a mask. And we had 2 separate lines, and where you enter the pool and where you exit the pool. And initially we only had 1 per lane. Then we graduated to 2 per lane. And then we presented that to the mayor, Brian Goodell, and he presented it to the city manager, and they approved it. And we were probably one of the first clubs, at least in California, to be back in the pool.
Yeah, I think you probably were the first club, at least legally, to get back in the pool. And that was pretty cool to see, especially seeing the connections that you have with some of your previous swimmers. Brian Goodell, you were saying, the mayor of Mission Viejo, and someone who's probably really pushing for swimming, especially in that city where I know it's such a big deal in Southern California. And it's been really cool just seeing you guys evolve as a program and seeing how things have changed. And but yeah, on this call today, I wanted to kind of take the listeners. I know you're so much more than just a swim coach. You're a businessman, entrepreneur, at a grandpa, father, so many different things. So I want the listeners kind of an inside scoop on Mark that they probably didn't know, or they might not know because they only see that one side on the pool deck, which trust me, but I've seen your other side too. And it's actually really cool. But just kind of take us through your experience kind of coming out of Kentucky. I know you're a Kentucky man, down in college out there. Take us through that experience kind of right out of college and your goals and ambitions getting into the swim world, starting coaching. Did you have all this shaped out? I mean, you were so successful. Olympic, I mean, I'm going to say it in the intro. I haven't made the intro yet. But you've done so many successful things in the swim world. What was your vision coming out of Kentucky, and kind of take us through this whole journey?
Well, actually, my junior year in high school, we had to write, what we wanted to do as an occupation. And I always admired my high school swimming coach. And I wrote that I wanted to be a high school swimming coach and kind of follow in his footsteps. And then at Kentucky, I got injured my sophomore year. So rather than compete, they allowed me to be a student assistant coach the last 2 years, which was a great experience to be able to kind of start off as a college coach. And then I went back to my hometown, which is Akron, Ohio, and coached at Cuyahoga Falls High School for 1 year. Tried to get that community to be excited about swimming and put a bubble over a 50-meter pool and start a big club program. Right. And the recreation director said, you're probably going to be a good swim coach someday, but it'll never be in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio.
Right.
So that's when I moved to California and took the job in Mission Viejo.
Wow.
And, I have to say that, growing up when I was swimming, Santa Clara, coached by George Haynes at the time, was the club in the world, and always was able to put the most swimmers on the American Olympic team. And that was kind of my goal. And we actually changed the colors of the team to blue and gold, which is Santa Clara's colors.
What colors was it before?
It was brown and gold.
Oh, so brown and gold. Yikes.
Yeah,
I'm glad we changed it to blue and gold.
Good call. I didn't have to work real hard to talk people into that.
I doubt it.
And then we actually named the street above the pool Santa Clara. So everybody kind of had that goal in mind. Initially, when I took the job, everybody kind of thought I was crazy. And we won this Orange County Swim Conference Championship the first year I was there, first summer I was there. And they wanted to push me in the pool. And I said, no, you can push me in the pool when we win the nationals. Well, they thought that was pretty crazy. And then 2 years later, we did. And they did push me in the pool, and that was a pretty good feeling. And actually, I was standing in the locker room with George Haynes. We were both soaking wet. He won the men and the combined, and we won the women. And that was just kind of like a dream come true. And then it just kind of went from there.
Wow. And how old were you when that happened?
That was 74, so I was 25.
I was going to make a joke. It was just a few years ago, but you mentioned the year, so I can't say that. Okay. So, wow. And I think you said something cool talking about just being from Ohio, starting that program. I think you got to pull a LeBron move. I think you got to go back to Ohio and win them a championship, and then you can go back to Mission. Pull the LeBron and go back to Cleveland.
Yeah, I was born in Cleveland and grew up in Akron, about 4 miles from where LeBron grew up. Yeah. So obviously I'm a pretty big LeBron fan and was thrilled to death when, not that he left Cleveland. That was kind of heartbreaking in a way, but then he moved to LA, and it was, that's pretty awesome. And I'm a huge Lakers fan.
Yeah. It seems like Mark always gets what he wants.
No, works for what he wants.
Works for it. Yeah, I like that. You always have a good way of putting different slogans, different words, different phrases together that always make us look bad. No, I'm just kidding. They make us better. They really do. And I think that's something that you've done a really good job at. And just thinking about something that really makes you a special coach, um, something that sets you apart from other coaches that I've had. Not saying every coach I've had doesn't have his special qualities, but just thinking about something you do really special is you make, I feel like every athlete can be the best. Every athlete can make it to the Olympics. And you really, I honestly feel like you really do believe that if you're willing to put in the work. And obviously there's going to be some cases where it's physical deficits, things where it's just like you person's 5'4", it's going to be, it's going to be hard to make the Olympics. But when they show up to practice, you have the mentality that you're going to give them everything you got. And if they have a dream, you're going to do everything you can for that person to achieve that dream. And I think that's really cool. And I think that really sets you aside. And I just honestly want to compliment you on having that special quality.
Thanks, Calvin. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it, especially coming to you. You were a unique challenge, and wow, you were a hard worker and achieved a lot in the sport, and have a lot of respect for you.
Hey, wow, I appreciate that. And I was talking to Wade. Shout out Wade. He's back there actually producing it right now. But we were talking yesterday, and he made a really good point of saying, even when we had these, we were in high school, say, take us back to 2014, swimming with Janet Evans, or maybe I was way back. Was that 2012? When was that? Was that 2010? What Olympics was she? What trials was she preparing for?
2012.
2012. So also shout out Janet Evans. That's a big name. She just showed up on deck one day, and I feel like it was a big deal that she was there, but you made your presence such a high status that when someone of that caliber showed up, our goal as swimmers was just to race them and compete. We weren't intimidated. Same thing, I think, when Jessica Hardy showed up to come train with you back in 2015, 2016. Was that 2015? Getting all my dates mixed up. Yeah, right?
No, you're right.
Yeah. When she showed up, I think, especially that little group that we had down when you were at Golden West, our goal was to compete with her and train with her. And we didn't see her as Jessica Hardy, the Olympian. And obviously we did have that respect for her, but it was just another training partner and another competitor. And I think that's something that you did really well bringing out of your athletes.
Well, I think, I've always been very fortunate to have some world-class athletes. And the thing that's great about that with the group is it just raises their standard. Athletes like that are so professional, and it does make everybody better. It makes everybody work harder. It kind of opens their eyes as to what it takes. And, if you have a special group, they aspire to be like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know we kind of jumped off track. I made the whole going back to Cleveland joke. Take us back to Mission. Now you're there. What's the future looking like?
Well, it was interesting. The first year that I was there, we qualified 4 swimmers for the nationals, the short course nationals in the spring, and we had one girl finish second, and her name was Peggy Tosdell, and that kind of kicked off the program. I think that proved to everybody that we could be a world-class program. And then, interestingly enough, I had 9 swimmers from Cuyahoga Falls that were on my former high school team come out that summer to train with us, and seven of them made the nationals, and 3 of them finaled at the nationals. And one of those swimmers was Terry Stoddard, who's become a well-known coach in Southern California and Pasadena. But that was really fun to see those swimmers come out, kind of spread their comfort zone and try to be the best they could be and be so successful that summer. And then, a year later, we had a successful nationals in '73, and Peggy made the world championship team. And then A year after that, Shirley Babashoff had joined the team, and Brian Goodell was coming into his own. And we actually won the nationals with 4 swimmers. We won 2 of the 3 relays and got second in the third, and everybody finaled, and a lot of those swimmers won, and just kind of had the perfect meet.
One of those relays had to be the 8 free relay.
Well, of course.
8 free and 4 medley, maybe. There's some sprinting in there. I don't know what the other one was.
Actually,
was there 8 medley back then?
No, it's not that long ago, Calvin. It's long ago, but no, Shirley was a great sprinter, so we usually won both freestyle relays. And we brought a breaststroker along who, gave it her all and did a great job, but had to compete against the best breaststrokers in the country. So we kind of lost a little bit on that leg, but it was fun. We did a good job, and Brian got 5th at that nationals as I think he was a 14-year-old, and kind of started to establish himself as a Olympic contender in 2 years.
Yeah, wow. Shout out Brian Goodell, because I know he's done a lot for Mission Viejo in that program.
Well, he actually was one of the original natadors in '68 as an 8-year-old. So, the natadors mean a lot to him. And, he's doing his best to help establish the program as I am, so that when we leave, that it continues to be the greatest program in the United States.
Wow. So after taking those nationals down with Mission, winning your first national championship, and I'm sure a few more to follow, did you have plans to leave? And was USC the first school that you left that whole club swimming world, to go see the NC2A collegiate world, or how'd that work?
Well, I kind of had fun when I was at Mission Viejo, and I would always take the time to go to both the men's and the women's NC2As, because I had so many club swimmers that were a part of it. And then I was convincing them to go to the short course nationals for the team. Right. So I had to do a little salesmanship too. But, I think that's kind of what got me interested in college swimming. And, the intensity of that meet was something that I kind of wanted to be a part of. But when I left Mission Viejo, we actually went to Boca Raton, Florida, and developed a big aquatic center there. Ron O'Brien, who probably the greatest diving coach in the history of the sport. He was Greg Louganis's coach. And we developed a swimming and diving center there.
Wait, yeah, I saw that online. I think that goes completely unnoticed, that you started something huge in Florida.
Yeah, that was fun. And actually, the team that we always battled for the national title with was Mission Viejo, and Terry Stoddard was the coach at Mission Viejo.
Of course.
So, kind of what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then after the Seoul Olympics, then I decided to become a college coach, and had the opportunity to become the women's coach at the University of Texas, and coached some great swimmers there. I think one year we put seven girls, because I was only coaching the women's team, on the world championship team, and that was pretty meaningful.
7?
7 women, yeah.
Wow, it's a pretty stacked team right there.
Yeah, well, it was very interesting, because back in the 80s, there was really only 3 teams, and that was Florida, Stanford, and Texas. Those were the only 3 teams that won the NC2As every year. And 2 of the 4 years I was there, we won, and the other 2 we got second. So it was pretty intense rivalry with Stanford and Florida, and it made swimming very interesting.
So that's where your hatred for Stanford started?
Yes.
We can edit that out, or should we keep it? Should we let the fans
know? No, you can keep it. And it wasn't a hatred, because Richard Quick, who was the coach there, was actually a very good friend of mine. We were intense competitors, but we had the opportunity of serving on the Olympic team together, and I really had a lot of respect for him, as I did and do for the Stanford program. It's just a matter of being competitive and wanting to be number one.
Excuse me.
And we always say that Stanford doesn't recruit, they select. But that's
Right.
just part of getting around. You know that.
Yeah, I think that's just part of the sport. As I've started to just get in, dabble my toe around in the coaching world, it changes your perspective on almost everything that you thought you knew. And it's just kind of funny to see that. So you actually started at Texas before USC.
Yes, I was at Texas for 4 years, and then after the Barcelona Olympics, had the opportunity to jump to USC and replace a legend who was Peter Dalen, and that was 14 years of great swimming and opportunity of coaching some great athletes and Olympic medalists, and we were able to win the women's NC2A championship in '97, and that was a big thrill as well.
Wow. So in college total, how many national championships did you win?
3, 2 at Texas and 1 at USC.
Wow. Wait, 2 at Texas, 1 at USC. And then after USC, you went back to, is shortly after USC when you went back to, when did you go back to Huntington Beach? I know in 2014.
Well, actually, I was a national team head coach for 4 years after USC. So I kind of left coaching, yet was in charge of all the coaches in the country,
Right.
and led the Olympic program. And then I had the opportunity of coaching at Golden West. There was a coach there named Bob Gillett. When I left USA Swimming, he offered me the opportunity to take over his job because he was retiring. And that was one of the most generous and fortuitous things that has ever happened to me, because really kind of fired me up as far as being a club coach again.
Yeah.
And we had some pretty good teams back there.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I think back then, I know I said 2014, I think it was 2010, 2012.
It was
something like that.
2010.
Yeah, 2010. And we had just left Fullerton Aquatics, not really knowing. I think someone said Mark Schubert's the coach. And at that point, 13, 14 years old, I didn't even know Mark Schubert, who he was or what I had in store. That's for sure. But it was definitely one of the coolest experiences, best times, built a really solid program, I think, from what we were coming from, or what Golden West was coming from, and their mentality. And I think things just really shifted. And that was really cool to see under your leadership. I want to say you were the 6-time Olympic head coach, and then worked in 2008 as well in Beijing.
Yeah,
As the coach.
I was on the deck as head coach 8 times.
Wow.
A little known fact, in '76, we had 6 swimmers on the Olympic team, which was more than anybody else. But I wasn't selected as a head coach because of my age. And
Right.
So I went to the Olympics as the head coach of Paraguay, because we had a swimmer from Paraguay on our team at Mission Viejo, and they asked me to go. So I was on the pool deck, and I did get a lot of experience before I was actually selected as an Olympic coach. But I was 27 at the time, so it was probably a wise decision not to select me as a coach, because I was pretty young for that kind of auspicious duty.
Right. Well, it turns out you still got 8, so that's okay.
And
And
it was fine.
yeah. I think if any coach right now, I think if you were to tell him you're going to be the 8-time Olympic, was it weird? Did you ever think you were going to be the Olympic head coach 8 times?
I have to say that and I wasn't the head coach 8 times. I was the head coach 4 times and assistant coach 4 times. But
Yeah,
it was really never one of my top goals. My top goal when I was a young coach was to win the national championship, and then after that, it was to develop Olympic gold medalists and work with athletes to try to have them become the best in the world. And when you're fortunate enough to have swimmers like Brian Goodell and Shirley Babashoff and Jesse Vasayo, um, being an Olympic coach will be a result of that. But it's really a result of their performances, and that's kind of what gives you a name. Uh, I like to give the credit to the swimmers because, as you well know, Calvin, they have to put the work in.
Yeah.
And when they say take your marks, the coach doesn't have much control. It's all about them.
Right. Probably one of the most frustrating things about swimming as a coach, right?
Well, you always swim every race with every athlete. So when they do well, there's nothing better.
Right.
It's like we say about a mile. A good mile is the best because it lasts 15 minutes. And a bad mile is the worst because it lasts a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
And it's like torture.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
at the end of a swimming meet, I think a good
Uh,
coach is exhausted because you've swum so many races in your mind with your athletes.
right. That's I mean, that's a really good point that you bring up. Just being there for your athletes. I think and I'm just very, again, touching my toe in the water of swimming and coaching. One of the biggest things that I've learned immediately that's hard watching athletes now is when I was a swimmer and an athlete competing, when I had a bad race or something to that say, I want to just dread on that race. But as a coach, it's so frustrating to watch an athlete sit there and just think about that race when the only solution and only cure is just, hey, forget about it. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think that's important. And we say that's um, the philosophy of the next time. And I think you have to get your athlete, if possible, to immediately do a mental switch to the next time. And even if you've done something really well, I like to see them celebrate for 10 minutes and then start thinking about the next time they're going to swim that race and what did they learn and what's their new goal. You have to get them to reset their goal as soon as possible.
Right. And that's a perfect segment into my next question, which is going to ask, you worked with so many insanely good athletes in top caliber. We're talking, let's see, I actually have a list right here. We're going to get all fancy with it. I'm going to read these stats off. You've worked with names. See if I remember my password. Perfect. Let's go. Brian Goodell. I'm just going to name the ones that I think people will know. Mike O'Brien, Janet Evans, Cynthia Woodhead, Lenny Kraselberg, Jarrett Maycott, Jessica Hardy, Eric Vent, Larson Jensen, Us Maluli, Dara Torres, Caitlin Sandino. And then I want to say, as a coach, just names like Phelps, Ryan, pretty much everybody. There probably really hasn't been a swimmer in there that you haven't worked with. What separates these athletes from a really successful, maybe good college athlete, maybe a successful club swimmer at this level? And now you're working with, I want to say, I should know it, Haley Anderson. Sorry, shouldn't have forgotten that. Haley Anderson. What separates these guys from the rest?
Well, we like to hammer in the point that when you stand on the blocks at the Olympics, everybody's well prepared. Everybody's in the best shape possible. And it's really, I think, the mind that makes the difference. Self-confidence. And, I try to convince swimmers that the way you develop self-confidence is every day in practice. We try to encourage them to do mental rehearsal and things of that nature, but really you develop confidence through your performances at practice. And as I'm sure you know, Calvin, most coaches could make a list of the three people that are going to do best at the big meet based purely on their performances in practice. You have to get better every year. If you swim the same times and you work just as hard, you're going to get the same result. You got to work harder every year. You got to swim faster every year. You got to be more competitive every year and more confident every year. And that's, truly how I think an athlete progresses. And of course, practice is part of it, and competition is part of it too. I think the main things for success are: number one, the mind; number two, the training; and number three, the ability to compete. A lot of people can do the first two.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
everybody, not everybody can do the last one.
Yeah. I think the third one's for sure. And in swimming, it gets so hard sometimes when you're behind the blocks and you don't have that confidence, which is why it's so important in practice when you're saying, hey, knock down those turns, tight streamlines, even the simple things. When you go into a race, you don't want to have to think about that. So these great ones, it seems like when you're watching their races, everything is so precise into the detail. And I think there's a lot of that missing in swimming. And I think now as I'm coaching a little bit again, um, I'm starting to see a huge, just it's driving me crazy when you see someone push off the wall and they're not in streamline doing their 3 dolphin kicks, as you understand that, hey, this is what it's going to lead to. And to get there, you got to separate yourself from the rest and be disciplined to build that self-confidence.
Well, like you said, it's what you do in practice that's going to happen in the swimming meet, because you're not going to be thinking about those things. You kind of go into automatic mode and you race the same way you train. And you had mentioned Jessica Hardy earlier, and you observed her training. She
Right.
did everything perfectly. She really, it's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice makes perfect. And
Right.
she was able to do that. The consummate pro.
From not just when practice started, but her whole life, at least while she was swimming, she'd come in every day, no matter what. She's there 20, 30 minutes before practice, has her rolling mat out, stretching, doing everything. So it's definitely pretty cool. And sorry, I'm looking back at some of your stats. It's cool to see some of those people that are at that level. Like those are the role models that we want to look at. And those are the people, they're doing everything that we want to do correctly. And it's good to see that. I'm just getting lost in my words right now. But this is perfect because it's a podcast, so we can just edit it out. But like what you're saying,
That's great.
yeah, we can just edit it and just slide this new clip in. That's so funny. But yeah, it's perfect to
I
see.
hope you're working hard back there, Wade.
Yeah, Wade's got a lot of work behind his hands right now at that computer, so we'll see what he could do. We'll make it sound good. Maybe we'll make my voice sound like way cooler, way clearer. We'll do some Photoshop. We'll buff ourselves up a little bit. It'll be perfect. Yeah, but like you were saying, Jessica Hardy does everything perfect. So if you're trying to look at that role model of how do I get to this next level, those athletes are the perfect example. And you've worked with so many of them who are so detailed, so disciplined. Currently, you have Haley Anderson right now, and mistake me if I'm wrong, but she's your athlete who's currently qualified for Tokyo 2021.
Right. She got second at the World Championships, and as a member of the U.S. team, placing in the top 10 at the World Championships, she qualified for the Olympics, and it's going to be one of the top hopes, I think, in the 10,000 meters. And that's a race that really requires a lot of physical and mental toughness. And her and Osmaluli, who's also training with us and is a two-time Olympic champion. He's shooting for his sixth Olympics at 36, and having those two on the team, they're just amazing. Like you said, they show up early, they do extra things, they know what it takes, and having them around and having younger athletes kind of aspire to be like them, I think makes the team a lot better.
Do you think it revamps or refreshes those swimmers? Like a swimmer, like you said, Osamaluli, 36 years old. Do you think showing up to practice with a bunch of kids who are 16, 17, 18, and let me tell you, really talented 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds, but do you think when they show up on deck, it brings them joy, brings them back to their high school days, and it makes training fun again?
Yeah, I think so. And we have uh, David Heron, who's one of the top distance swimmers in the country and placed second the last 2 years at the Nationals in the 10K.
Yeah.
And he's graduate of Tennessee, so he's a little bit older. So it's nice having some older swimmers,
Yeah.
but they have fun with the younger swimmers too. They really do.
Yeah, I bet. I remember swimming with some of those olders, some of those pro athletes that you brought down back in the day. And that was just, I mean, that was so fun. You think you're one of them. Because, I mean, you really are at the time. It's 2020. Haley's getting ready for the Olympics. Did you guys have any idea that this was all going to go down, this whole pandemic coronavirus? Did you guys have any insight? Think, take us through that.
Well, obviously, nobody really knew the impact. And then when we were shut down for 6 weeks in March, that was a tough thing. Most of the swimmers in my group hadn't taken that long of a break since they were 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of different on how we were going to handle that and going through the whole protocol to get back in. We got back in on May 1st. And, you know, I think the thing that's amazed me more than anything through the pandemic is without the goals of specific swim meets, because we really don't know when the next swim meet is. If we're
Right.
lucky, we can plan it 2 or 3 weeks out. But
Yeah.
without those specific goals, these swimmers have trained so hard.
Yeah.
So obviously, they've been able to mentally tell themselves that it's not going to last forever, and
Wow.
they're going to make every minute count so that when it's over with, they're ready. And that's been amazing to me, because I would have thought that it would have been a lot harder to get uh, boys and girls to train as hard as these guys are training. I mean, Calvin, you know what these guys go through in our
Oh,
program,
yeah.
because you've lived it, and
Yeah.
so
Shout out
is
those
Wade.
mission swimmers. Yikes. You guys are living through it right now. Trust me, it only gets better. If you guys are listening, it only gets better. I promise. And it's all worth it. It is all worth it. Let me tell you that.
Got a boy, Calvin. I paid you to say
There we go. Our proud sponsor, Mark Schubert.
that. No, but it's true. Work works. That's everybody's favorite saying in USA Swimming,
Yeah.
and it just amazes me. And we went around the other morning before we got in the pool and asked every swimmer what their GPA was. And there was not one swimmer in my group whose GPA was below 4.0. Not one. So
Wow.
not only is it talented, but it's the smartest group that I've ever coached. And it's a little bit intimidating to know me as a C average PE major is surrounded by all these kids that are going to go to Harvard and Stanford and Columbia and places like that. But it really does make you proud.
That's all right. You can make it as a C average major. You proved it. C's get degrees.
Well, it's all about
So do A's though.
it's all about your motivation. Once you choose your career and how hard you're willing to work. Nobody really asks you what your GPA was in college 5 years later. They want to know
No.
what you've accomplished right now.
No, yeah. I don't think I've applied for any job out of college and they've asked for my GPA. They just want to get to know me. Not saying that every job is like that because I'm not applying. I'm not a doctor, nothing like that. But you're definitely right that it's all about how hard you work. And
You just gotta get that degree. But boy, is it important.
yeah, it is important. And it's really cool. Again, you have a really smart group. I think that speaks to I think it's a compliment to you as well, because I think you attract a certain type of crowd. And I think it speaks levels when you see all the type of successful, really successful, hardworking, different athletes. There's a certain mentality and a certain crowd that they attract. Kobe Bryant, it's all about his work and mentality. And I think it's the same thing with you. When an athlete shows up and he's going to be your swimmer, he knows that you got to excel at not only in the water, but your expectation is them to excel as a person more than anything. So I think that's really cool. Back to Haley, 2021. Do you guys have any insight? Do you have any inside scoops, details? Is 2021, I almost want to say it's a for sure go. There's talk about fans? Have you guys been?
Well, she had a lot of success at that Western Open Water Championship, winning the 10K. And, she had to win the 10K against Ashley Twitchell, who also is on the U.S. team and finished behind her at the World Championship. So it was a tough race. I mean, it was a world-class race. And now she's competing in the ISL. And
She in Budapest, right? Is it in Budapest, right?
she's in Budapest. She's
Okay,
in the
yeah.
bubble in Budapest. Actually, I talked to her today. And she's continuing to do our training, so she's not losing anything.
Wow.
But every couple of weeks she gets an opportunity to race, and I think she was 4 minutes in the 400, which in hard training is pretty good swim.
Yeah,
And
it's not a 3:59, but we'll take 4 minutes, right?
yeah, I told her that today. Literally, I told her that.
Yeah,
today.
Perfect.
And
Never change.
But the thing is, she's there with all these world-class athletes from around the world, and how motivating is that? A lot of people kind of said, well, would you really want a 10K swimmer to go and swim in a league where the furthest they swim is 400? I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
The thrill of being selected and the
Yeah.
thrill of having that opportunity to rub shoulders with those people every day and to race against them is just the best. So it's been really good for her, especially, considering the fact that we've really had no swimming meets for her except for that 10K since February.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. The ISL is something, it is, I think, completely going to change the sport of swimming. In high school, for the most part, you had to come to an understanding that college was probably going to be the peak. You got 4 years to compete. And then after that, who knows? Let's see where you go in college. But you got those 4 years, and then that's kind of going to be the top of your career. I think if we knew that there was going to be a professional league starting up and done real legit, I think it would change a lot of swimmers, that, especially in my age, perspective on swimming. I think that was one of the harder things to. Sorry, continue.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's been very motivational, and I agree with you. I think it's going to change the way a lot of people perceive the sport. And we've had pros, but we've never really had a pro league. And the only thing I've been able to observe is I went to the finals last year in Las Vegas, and it was fabulous. I mean, not only the level of swimming, but they put on a show. I mean, it's not just a swim meet, it's a show. And it makes the sport real exciting.
Yeah, it really does. And again, speaking to, I think it would have changed a lot of swimmers' perspectives. Because I think me as a young kid, I think that was the biggest downfall of swimming. And the hardest thing was knowing that, hey, in 4 years, I might have to make a living doing something that's not being an athlete, which is something I had done my whole life and been trained to do so well. So I think the ISL is really cool. I definitely think watching it, I think it was broadcasted on ESPN last year. They definitely have some things that they can make better. And once they start to touch those up, I think audience will start to be, because I think it was a little bit confusing going into some of those skins heats. And if you weren't a swimmer, you'd be a little bit confused on what was going on. But I think once they touch some of those things up, I think the ISL is set up to be really successful. Seems like they got a lot of money put into it. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be the future. I agree with you.
Let's see, what else did I want to cover? Sorry, Wade, get to work here, buddy. We want to cover ISL. I think we pretty much have everything I want. We're going to ask you, we're going to play a game. I don't know what we want to call it. I figured every podcast we're going to try to come up with a segment. Oh, Just kidding. We're going to come back here. We're going to just edit this all out. I don't know what time this is. I'm going to wave my hand so Wade knows when to clip it. I know we were just talking ISL. Super cool. Going to be a really cool thing. Real quick, I know you have some really cool stories from the Olympics. Big year. Lakers just won the championship. You're a Lakers fan. Kind of crazy year 2020, especially with Kobe and the loss of his life and his daughter and everyone else involved in the accident. I know you have a pretty cool story about Kobe from the 2008 Olympics with Michael Phelps. You want to share that with us?
Sure.
Yeah.
We were at a training camp, and we went across the street from the hotel to eat dinner. And as we crossed the street, this black Mercedes pulls up with windows all tinted, and it's Kobe, and he rolls down the window, and he knows Michael Phelps real well because they've been to a number of Olympics together. And he goes, "Hey, Mr. Olympics, can't you even say hi?" Just giving Michael a hard time, but it was pretty fun and pretty funny, and obviously a thrill for everybody that's standing around there.
Yeah.
Because he lives in Newport, and we were training camp in Irvine, so it was great to see him. But I think the other real thrill
Did Phelps
for us,
know it was Kobe at first?
no, because these windows were real dark, but Kobe was kind of acting like, "Well, you should have seen me."
Yeah.
But
So
it was.
Phelps never turned around and was like, "Oh, that's Kobe Bryant." He was just in his zone.
He was in the zone. Yeah, he had his headphones on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. That I remember you telling us that story, and I was like, as a young kid, having your coach talk about experience with Phelps and Kobe was two of the coolest things. In
And
2008.
then
Oh
and
yeah,
then
continue. Sorry.
another cool story was in 2008. One of the earlier final sessions, the whole USA basketball team came down and sat in the bleachers with us.
Wow, that's so
and
sick. I'm
and
jealous.
cheered with us. And I remember LeBron being there, and there was one girl that got up on the blocks and nobody was cheering, and he goes, "Hey, she's up on the blocks, let's cheer." And
And from then on.
I always thought that was pretty cool. But the thing was, the pool director came up to me before the meet started,
Yeah.
and he said to me, "Hey, these people can't be here. You have to tell them to move." And I said, "No, you tell them." And he just walked away.
Yeah, he was gonna walk up to LeBron, Kobe, all those
Right.
guys, the dream team right there.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
So
hilarious.
yeah,
Did you
that was
talk
pretty
to
fun.
Did you talk to LeBron after, and were you the initial recruit to LA? You told, hey, you got to come out to LA one of these days. I know it's a
I wish I
championship,
could
huh?
take credit. I did get LeBron and Kobe's autograph from my mom. She was a big LeBron fan, obviously being from Cleveland. So
Wow, that's
uh,
so cool. I wish we could have you
yeah,
on for like 6 hours and you could just talk all your stories with LeBron and Kobe and all your boys. So
it was fun.
yeah, we'll definitely have to get you on again. Mark,
Anytime.
we're gonna finish this up. We're not done yet. We're gonna play a game. It's gonna be called. Are you
Calvin
familiar with?
Rogers.
Yeah, on should we the Calvin Rogers game?
We
I
should
think
call it the Calvin Rogers game.
I don't know if it's. I feel like it's not that cool of a game yet. It's just going to be 1 minute questions where I'm going to have the listener sending questions for next week's guest. So shout out to next week's guest, Herbie Bem at ASU, the sprint coach. He's going
Wow.
to be on and kind of talking things ASU, things he's learned from Bob, his experience there. To finish it up, let's do the 1 minute questions.
Okay.
Maybe call it the 1 minute corner. Do you know who Bill Simmons is? Okay,
If
if
you
you
know
don't.
him, I should.
Yeah, I'm sure if you saw him or knew that he's a famous like sports, does a podcast, The Ringer, shout out The Ringer. He does these segments at the end of his podcast, and they're called Parent Corner, where maybe a parent tells a funny story about his kid that week. But I want to do 1 minute corner where we just ask you whatever questions we want for a minute. So we're gonna start the clock. We get 1 minute, and I wrote out some questions that I want to ask you, and hopefully the listeners, I don't want to say fans. We don't have fans yet. The listeners enjoy them. Okay, let me start the timer. All right. We're going to call this the 1 minute to win it. No, that's not. That's too lame. We'll call 1 minute corner. All right. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Big game. A lot of pressure. Start. All right. If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
Being an attorney.
Guilty pleasure.
Pleasure.
Food wise.
Spaghetti.
Ooh. Something you can't live without.
Diet Coke.
I knew you were going to say that. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Well, I would have the ability to wave my hand and make anybody a world-class athlete.
I think you have that ability, kind of. It's you're still working on mastering it for everybody. All right, what are you watching on Netflix right now? What's your Netflix show? This is a good one, huh?
This is a good one. I'm watching the show that my wife watches, and I can't even think of his name, but it's about the sheriff in Wyoming.
Oh, I know this. My dad loves this show. You guys should just meet up and talk about this show. It's called I'm blanking on the show.
Yeah,
if
me
someone
too.
Someone knows the name, it's called.
It's
I'm
the
gonna look it up
best.
right now.
It's riveting. It really is riveting.
We're gonna go over a minute. It's gonna be like the 3 minute corner. Show about Wyoming cowboy.
Sheriff.
Longmire.
Oh, Longmire. I know.
Longmire. Great show.
And you know what amazes me is every episode is riveting.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it goes from one to the other, but every episode is different and every episode is riveting. And
Yeah.
I have a real problem because I stay up so late at night watching this stupid show.
What time do you normally go to bed at? That's
Well,
our next question.
Usually I'm in bed by 8:30 because I have to get up at 4.
Okay, so that's a good way of saying you go to bed at like 12:30. So you spend like, what's that, four Longmire episodes right there?
Oh my gosh, I know. Well, that's why swimming coaches need a nap.
Oh yeah, that's why swimming coaches usually have the middle of the days off. Not all swim coach, not the middle of the days off, never taking off. I know you're gonna say something wise. You're never taking off, but naps are good. Okay. Next question: LeBron or Jordan?
LeBron.
Let's go. I knew you were gonna say that. I'm with you right there. If you're not at the pool, where would someone find you?
In my Porsche.
There we go. I knew you were gonna say that. I was gonna ask you something about cars, but you have a Porsche. Mark drives fast cars, and if you ever see someone driving by you and he is zooming by, playing some AC/DC or something like that, just know you've witnessed Mark Schubert. That's it. Thank you for coming on to the show today. We appreciate. I don't think we could set the bar any higher for our first guest. That's awesome.
Well, it's really been fun, and I just need to give credit where credit is due, and that's Wade Nelson behind the scenes doing all the work.
Shout out Wade in the back. He's gonna make an awesome clip edit. I don't even know if we're gonna edit this part out, but
no, you shouldn't.
No.
Calvin, you're amazing. I think you have a little career here. Keep it up.
Wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. We'll talk to you soon. I'm gonna stop by Mission one of these days. All right.
All right. Don't say it. Do it.
All right. Sounds good. Take care, Mark.
All right. Bye-bye.